Mr. Hassan, thanks for being with us today. I have three quick questions for you. In your most recent field work, what was the greatest challenge in working with different stakeholders? So what worked and what didn't work? And also could you give us examples of cooperation with stakeholders in the field and on any pointers on what to do in the future in order to be able to mitigate disasters a little bit more?
Okay. My most recent response was to the Nepal earthquake in April. And the greatest challenge posed to us, the humanitarian responders, was that the geographical terrains, which actually hindered our access into the affected areas. And we know it was like the same quake that took place in Muzaffarabad in 2005 and also 2008 in Wenchuan, where accessibility was the key problem for all the aid responders. And it could have helped if, whether the private sector or the militaries could have made available air assets such as the Chinooks, the helicopters, the Ospreys, or like the ones that the US used, but unfortunately it was only like 7 days later after the quake. So these are the things which, if accessibility is there, then the service that are required by the affected communities would be able to be received in a more timely and also in a more sustained fashion.
Our second question, so there are many forms of disasters that require humanitarian assistance, but some get more airtime than others, and some, the needs of the affected people surpass the airtime given and the current aid efforts. How would you suggest we raise awareness on disasters, whether they're small or big?
Right. So in terms of whether a disaster gets more airtime or lesser airtime, one which is big or one which is small, it's not just about the scale but also the intensity of the devastation and also the disaster. If given the increasing occurrence of natural disasters in this region especially, one would have to have a dedicated disaster channel. So the media can't afford to have this. So, but at the same time, having said that, there's already a platform where information could be disseminated. That is via the relief web set up by the UN OCHA. And I think it would be good if it can be expanded. It's already made available to the public, but you are right, awareness is not there for the public to tap on into the website, and perhaps it could be more like a push mail kind of a circular to the public that have subscribed to them.
Yeah. Thank you for your recommendation. So for our final question, so do you see the role of the private sector becoming larger in humanitarian efforts in the future, or will corporate contributions to such efforts remain a CSR or one-off type of donation?
Well, I feel corporations must play a larger part now. One, because the private sector has been seen as only the ATM machines or the cash cows of the ecosystem. But in fact, a lot of assets, like transportation, healthcare expertise, are also within the private sector domain. So this is where it can be tapped on, but of course the corporations needs to be triggered or needs to be made to understand how we can play a part and a larger part. So that's one, where perhaps the UN or the ASEAN, can play a more active approach to bring in the private sector players. At the same time, also, if we talk about sustainability, if you bring back the Southeast Asia floods of 2011, right? You see Toyota, they have batches, huge batches of cars which were devastated and made redundant and totally useless, and also their employees were affected. So companies can come in not only as a disaster response or at the disaster response phase, but also pre-disaster, the preparations and also the capacity building, where they can help to mitigate risks to the communities and also their employees, which can actually amount up to close to thousands.
Okay, well that wraps up our podcast. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.